Good morning, guys, and welcome to another edition of Confessions of an Undertaker. This video isn't going to be a Confessions of an Undertaker video. There's not going to be any funeral content in it. You may have noticed I've been away from the camera for a couple of weeks, well, on YouTube anyway, because obviously a few weeks ago I found myself in hospital for a week, and recently I've been back in hospital again. And during my last video that I did say that I would make another video explaining the reasons why exactly I was in hospital. Excuse me. Can't be a cup of tea. So this is that video basically. For those of you who don't know, I was born with a heart condition, quite a complex heart condition, and hopefully by making this video, I'd like to raise some kind of awareness, and just kind of bring it up to people's attention about congenital heart disease and living with a heart condition and what it's all about. So hopefully that will kind of raise awareness for a few people. Anyway, if it does, it does. That's brilliant. If not, then well, I hope you enjoy listening to me rabbiting on about my health problems. So back all those years ago, when I was born with quite a rare heart condition. Now, when I say rare, I mean really rare, especially the form of heart condition that I have. It's called dextrocardia. And basically what that means is my heart is on the wrong side of my chest, so it's off to the right as opposed to the left. It was back to front, and I had two valves missing and only two functioning chambers. Most people's hearts have 4 chambers. That wasn't the case with me. I only had 2. So basically what they had to do is kind of reconstruct my circulatory system around my heart, because the heart wasn't getting through the necessary places where it needed to get through. So they had to do what is called a Fontan operation, which is basically like a bypass almost. It's like an artificial tube that they constructed out of either pig veins or pig arteries. It was some kind of pork-based anatomy. And they put that into the heart to allow the blood flow through it. Basically, what it was doing, it wasn't allowing. It was allowing the oxygenated and the deoxygenated blood to mix together. So a lot of people with this heart condition, you'll notice that they have a blue tinge to their lips and to their fingertips and things like that, and that's because the blood is mixed. Whereas obviously most people with a normal circulatory system, it's all fine and their colours are fine and everything's great. But for me and people like me, it's not as easy as that. So in layman's terms, that was basically what it was. I was having the plumbing redone in my heart, if you like. So my heart is still on the wrong side. It's still back to front. It did have a hole in it as well, which managed to seal itself, which is quite good. But the whole issue is around this Fontan circulation. So the years have gone on. I've been in and out of the hospital more times than I care to remember. And I had my last big surgery back in '95, where they actually did the Fontan procedure by a doctor called Dr. Pozzi, Marco Pozzi, who has worked his magic, and I'm here to tell the tale. They didn't really give me much of a good chance of living, is the honest answer. They didn't think I would really make the first few months. And I always remember getting to my 18th or my 21st birthday. I can't remember which one. It was one of the two kind of big milestones. And I spoke to my mum on the phone, and she was in floods of tears. I was like, "What are you crying for?" And she said, "I didn't think you'd be here. The doctor said you wouldn't make it this far, and so I'm just so happy that you are actually able to celebrate your birthday." So that's really good. As far as actually living with the condition itself, it's not that much of a bigger problem, is the honest answer. There are a lot more people out there who are in a worse situation than me. I'm quite lucky and quite thankful that I can get up of a morning and do a normal job. Well, I say normal job, not normal about what I do, but I can do, a job. I can live an everyday, relatively normal life. I can get up, I can walk about with very little trouble, except for in these last couple of weeks, I have started to have a lot of trouble. Just really walking from the upstairs of my flat to the downstairs. It is really, really taking it out of me and knackered me out is the honest answer. And sorry, I'm filming this on a mobile phone and there's messages popping up. And I started getting quite fast heart rates called palpitations. So I went to my doctors and they did tests and all the rest of it. And basically they fitted me with a little device called a loop recorder. And a loop recorder is basically the size of that kind of thing on this bit of the pen. And it just sits under the skin there. And it records your heart rate, and they give you like a little remote control that when you're having a symptom, whether it be chest pain, palpitations or whatever, you press the button, hold it over your chest, and it records it and sends it to the hospital. Anyway, to cut a long story short, because this has been in for about 6 months now, recently I've been getting a lot of these symptoms. I'm feeling quite run down and quite rubbish, is the honest answer. And it all came to a head a couple of weeks ago when I went in and they said, "You've got this thing called atrial tachycardia, which is basically a very fast and erratic heartbeat." So they give me medication to calm it down and everything. So a few weeks went by. Obviously, I spent that week in hospital. I went back to work. I was only back in work for a week when I started to feel really ill again. And bear in mind what I do for a living. There's a lot of lifting and carrying and walking about. So it was quite a physically demanding job. So I started to feel really ill again. So it was during my time off, because when I left hospital the first time, the doctors had given me 2 weeks to recuperate. And it was during the second week the final part of the second week, I went into town, or to the city centre, just to do a bit of shopping, and I was feeling really, really bad. And where the hospital is, I was only a couple of streets away, so I thought I'll walk to the hospital. I'd already rang them to say I'd been having these symptoms and I wasn't feeling well. And bear in mind, when they discharged me from hospital, you know, a couple of weeks ago, they said, if you have any more of these symptoms, come straight back into hospital. So, no problem. So I was in town and I was just feeling like death warmed up. So I walked to the hospital, which should have taken about 5 minutes. It took me a good hour, you know, to complete a 5-minute journey. That's how bad it was. And I got to the Bristol Heart Institute, went up to the outpatient clinic where I knew my doctor would be. And I'm under what they call the Gooch team. And Gooch stands for Grown Up Congenital Heart. So the Grown Up Congenital Heart Disease team. And I basically told the receptionist what was going on. And so within about 2 minutes of me arriving, I saw somebody. I saw the nurse that I usually saw. They did an ECG, they did some blood tests, and they basically said, right, we need to admit you into hospital. And luckily for me, my cardiologist was running a clinic that day. And he looked at the results and he said, no, we need to keep him in because he's having what is called bradycardia, which basically means a slow heartbeat. And I was in what they call 2-to-1 heart block. So if you like your heart, this is your top chamber and this is your bottom chamber. So your heart goes bum, 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 bum. Mine wasn't. Mine was going bum, bum, bum. So the electrical signals at the top were not getting through to the bottom, or they just weren't getting there quick enough. And they had to fire off 2 beats so that this 1 beat could happen, which that was what was obviously causing the fast rhythms. So in order to treat the slow rhythms, the only thing that they can do is fit a pacemaker. Now, when I was in a couple of weeks ago, I discussed the options of a pacemaker because I thought a pacemaker could treat both slow and fast heart rhythms, and they can't. They can only treat slow rhythms. So they said to me, no, you don't need a pacemaker because that's not how we treat these fast rhythms. You just need, you know, what they call an ablation, which basically means it's the scar tissue around the heart that are giving off electrical signals that make the heart go faster. And the scar tissue was formed when they done the operations, because obviously I had open heart surgery. So they go in through your groin through like a catheter, and they burn off all the scar tissue around the heart, and then that kind of solves that problem. They didn't do that in the end because my heart went back to a normal rhythm, which is bloody typical. It's, you know, you go to a doctor with a problem, and as soon as you get to the doctor, the problem stops, which is basically what happened. But this time around, it seemed to be a lot more serious. So they said, you know, we need to fit you with a pacemaker, and that's exactly what they did. They admitted me there and then. I went on to the cardiac care unit, and I stayed there until Tuesday morning when I went down for my pacemaker surgery. And because my pacemaker is a normal pacemaker in the respect that, you know, anybody can have this type of pacemaker fitted, the only kind of tricky bit was actually get into the heart itself using the veins, and they thought I would have to have a surgical pacemaker, which basically meant that they would have had to open up my chest again, like open heart surgery, and put the pacemaker wires on the outside of the heart. But that wasn't really, it was an option, but it was an option that they didn't really want to have to go down, because it was quite dangerous and it wasn't guaranteed. So they said, we'll do the keyhole surgery, which, you know, if you have a pacemaker, or you know anyone with a pacemaker, it goes, you know, up here. The little battery sits right here and goes into the heart. That is basically what they did. But so what they'll have to do is they'll have to go in to the heart and puncture through this fontan tube to get into the heart. And again, they said that wasn't guaranteed, you know, because obviously over the years, you know, wear and tear, this fontan, you know, tube had become tough and things like that, because obviously your heart is a constant pump, a muscle that just pumps and pumps and pumps. So over the years, you know, bits of it get stronger, bits of it get weaker, and, you know, some bits deteriorate and some bits don't. So there was no kind of cast iron guarantee that this would work, but he seemed to be fairly optimistic that this was the best way forward. And that's what they did. Most pacemakers take about an hour to fit. Mine took 4 hours. Most pacemakers are done under general anaesthetic. Sorry, local anaesthetic. Mine was done under general. And most people are out the next day after a pacemaker. I got released on Saturday, just gone. So after 9 days of being in the hospital, I finally got released. That's that done. And so far so good. Excuse me. Things are going quite well. No real major issues. The pacemaker is where it should be. It's on this side. It was originally going to put it this side, because obviously that's the side my heart's on, but he didn't put it this side, which is a bit of a pain, because this is the side, this is the shoulder I carry coffins on. But there we go. Always thinking about work. So yeah, apart from being in a little bit of pain and slight discomfort, you know, I can pretty much get around as I was before all this happened. Obviously, I need to wait a while to let all the swelling and the scarring and the bruising to settle down. But, you know, other than that, I'm all good to go. I'm off work for 6 weeks, which again, if I was doing just a normal office job, I'd probably be back in work now. But because obviously I don't do a normal office job, and, you know, I do a lot of driving and lifting, carrying, as you all know, then unfortunately I'm prohibited to kind of do any of that for 6 weeks. So that's it, yeah. That's my story, basically, of kind of being born with quite a rare heart condition. You know, my mum and dad being told I wasn't really going to live very long. And almost 32 years later, I'm still here to tell the tale. A few ups and downs along the way. I didn't ever think I'd have to have a pacemaker, but there you go, I've got one. It's always good to have something from the NHS. Souvenir, but there we go. The NHS have been absolutely brilliant. If you don't know what the NHS is, if you're obviously watching this from abroad, the NHS is the UK's National Health Service, where people can seek treatment from the NHS absolutely free of charge. It doesn't matter who you are, what class you are, how much money you have, how much money you don't have. We're all treated equally in the NHS. So whether you are a Duke or an Undertaker, you still get treated exactly the same in the NHS, and it is the best health service in the world by a milestone. Not that I've tried many more different health services, not that I want to, but it's renowned for being the best. The Bristol Heart Institute, where I stayed, is one of the leading heart consultant hospitals in the country. You know, people come from all over the UK to be treated by the surgeons and the consultants and the nurses at the Heart Institute, and they are worth their weight in solid gold. And the NHS is such a precious thing for us to have in in the UK. And without getting into politics and sounding all political and everything, it is vitally important that each and every one of us in this country protect the NHS, because if it goes, people like me and people who are a lot worse off than me just do not stand a chance of being treated. I literally owe my entire life to the NHS, and if I was in a position where I had pots of money, you know, or I had a real huge public profile where I could make a difference to the NHS and, you know, raise funds for them or even donate funds to them, then I would. You know, if God was to grant me the good fortune to become a billionaire, then I think I'd spend my billions on the health service and, you know, making sure that they had exactly whatever they needed to do the jobs that they do. Because the sad thing is, even though Britain is one of the richest countries in the world, our health service is grotesquely underfunded, and they need so much money. It's unreal. And yeah, we need to do a lot more to try and support the health service if we can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple of links in the description to this video below. One to the British Heart Foundation, which is a charity here in the UK that helps people with all manner of heart conditions, you know, from the very, very minor to the very, very major and everything else in between. I'm going to put a link to the Bristol Heart Institute itself so you can see the good work that they do, and also the charity that supports the Heart Institute as well. So if you do feel that you're able to, please give whatever you can afford to either Heart Foundation or the Heart Institute, because both of them are in great need of financial support. I'm always looking for volunteers as well. If you can't offer money but you can offer time, then that's just as valuable as well. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope now you kind of realise why I've been away from YouTube for a little while. But now that, you know, I'm kind of not necessarily out the woods, but at least out of hospital and recovering, that I'll be able, you know, you'll be able to see the reasons why, and then I'll be able to get back to creating more YouTube videos for the Confessions of an Undertaker series. And hopefully, you know, God willing, I'll get back to work in a few weeks' time, and that this episode won't hinder the work that I've been doing in and around the funeral and death care industry. So thank you for watching. If you've got any questions, feel free to drop me a message. Massive thank you, by the way, to every single one of you who sent messages of support and get well soon and everything like that over social media. So if you follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, you know, anything like that, and you sent a message, thank you. I've been so overwhelmed by all the love and support you've given me, so thank you very much. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you like it, and subscribe and share it and do whatever you want with it. So until the next time, see you soon. Bye for now.